Topping today's news, after a great deal of tension between the two, FTX's new management and Bahamian officials working together, a murder accused is arraigned in court today. The Prime Minister addressing some of the vexing criminal elements like street gangs, and the official opposition continues to pressure the government on crime. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jarino Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. FTX's new management team and Bahamian court-appointed joint provisional liquidators have agreed to share information as well as work together to secure and distribute assets that belong to FTX's companies here in the Bahamas and in other international jurisdictions, as a cooperation agreement between the two has been announced. Under the agreement, the parties will work together to share information, secure and return property to their rightful owners, coordinate litigation against third parties, and explore strategic alternatives for maximizing stakeholder recoveries. The parties have agreed on parameters for involving FTX Digital Markets in the Chapter 11 bankruptcy cases and for involving the FTX debtors in proceedings here in the Bahamas. The parties also agreed to look at the nature of transfer of real estate by FTX here in the Bahamas, as well as a process to confirm the inventory of digital assets under the control of the Securities Commission of the Bahamas. Both parties are comfortable the digital assets have been appropriately safeguarded by the Securities Commission as restructuring discussions continue. New CEO of FTX, John Ray III, is quoted as thanking the Bahamas Joint Provisional Liquidators for constructive meetings in Miami in recent days and all of their works on behalf of their estate. However, he says there are some issues where there is not a meeting of the minds, but they have resolved many of the outstanding matters and have a pathway forward for resolving the other issues. In news from the courts, 31-year-old Kirkland Bullard had his day in court for the December 22nd shooting death of D'Amato DeVoe on 8th Street, Coconut Grove. The 31-year-old Bullard appeared before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt, accused of the killing. Due to the nature of the charges, he was not required to enter a plea and remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections. He returns to court on the 14th of April for a service of a voluntary bill of indictment. Also appearing in the magistrate's court today, a 35-year-old mother of 6 was charged with 6 counts of cruelty to children. While details into the matter are concealed due to the nature of the case, it is alleged that the woman on the 7th of January did cause unnecessary suffering to her 6 children. While standing before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt, the 35-year-old pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges and was granted $5,000 bail. She has been ordered to sign into the Nassau Street Police Station once a week. As for the children, it was revealed by the prosecution 4 of the children are currently in the custody of the state at the Nazareth Home for Children, and the other 2 children are currently in the custody of their grandmother. The matter has been adjourned until the 16th of January at 11 a.m.
The violence in our country is a tragedy, one that tears at our soul. Crime has been a very serious and chronic problem for too long, and then a succession of national crises poured gasoline on the fire. Years of trauma, dislocation, lockdowns, despair have led to the tragedies we see unfolding around us. Each act of violence has a ripple effect in our families, in our churches, and in our wider communities.
That is Prime Minister Philip Davis addressing officers of the Royal Bahamas Police Force during their annual service of Thanksgiving at the Zion Baptist Church on Sunday. The nation's leader in acknowledging the crime issues, noting that ruined hopes, lives cut short, broken families, and broken hearts are terrible consequences of violence. The Prime Minister notes that when policing is done in partnership with the people, everyone benefits. And with that said, or with that in mind, he spoke to several initiatives being undertaken to target gangs and guns.
As you know all too well, gangs are reaching into our schools to recruit. And this is happening in the younger grades as well as the older grades. Our presence on campuses has strengthened security in our schools, which we owe you our thanks. We also need to stop gangs from recruiting inside the prison walls. All too often, young men are leaving prison with fewer options than they had previously, but more dangerous connections. Many of the obstacles we face in creating safer communities are homegrown, but they are amplified and worsened by the dangers that come from outside the country too. We are implementing measures to strengthen the defense of our borders.
The Prime Minister says priority for the government is to continue adding manpower and revitalizing law enforcement. He commends the officers for their commitment to the work that they do.
You deserve the resources, manpower, training, and technology you need to enforce the law. You deserve a government and a private sector working together to create opportunities and paths out of need and despair. You deserve a healthcare system that can address mental health breakdowns. You deserve communities in which mentors and role models are plentiful and dedicated. You deserve a legal system that delivers justice and delivers it swiftly. You deserve prisons that rehabilitate in the truest sense of that word.
While the Prime Minister says the responsibility for leading the fight against crime lays with the government, specifically himself as the nation's leader, he says we can choose to come together in the face of crisis instead of falling apart. Meanwhile, Deputy Leader of the Free National Movement and Shadow Minister for National Security, Shannon Dawn Cartwright, is again calling on the Davis administration to present a comprehensive plan to fight crime. With the Bahamas already recording 4 homicides during the first 6 days of 2023, the St. Barnabas Member of Parliament, in a written statement, is calling for leadership and action as he accused the government of failing the Bahamian people on the crime crisis. Last year, the country recorded 128 murders, an 8% increase from 2021, which saw 119 murders. Mr. Cartwright said the government has brought no solutions to Bahamians and the crime fight, and it remains a crisis and continues to shake communities, threaten our way of life, and take Bahamian lives. Mr. Cartwright, though, commends the efforts by the Commissioner of Police, Clayton Fernanda, who has gone on record to say that there is a need to change the criminal justice system, calling for judges to limit bail to those who have been repeat offenders. Mr. Cartwright is asking the government, when will they address the concerns expressed by the police? Mr. Cartwright said the FNM remains committed to assisting the government in developing solutions to the issue of crime. And finally, in this segment, official opposition leader Michael Pintard is calling out the Davis administration yet again over what the FNM calls their lack of accountability and transparency. Mr. Pintard says the Free National Movement is troubled, concerned, and amazed at how the Davis administration has continued to ignore the laws of the land.
For example, when will the government finally follow the Procurement Act? Whether they find the law convenient is neither here nor there. If they are ignoring the law, what procurement processes are they following? Are all these contracts being subject to competitive bidding? Where is the publication of the details of the contract? When will we finally see the implementation of the Freedom of Information Act? It is already the law of the land. The excuse about waiting for an electronic portal is nonsense. We must start, even if it means starting with a face-to-face process, and then implement the electronic process when it becomes available.
The Marco City Member of Parliament goes on to say the government can start publicizing all of its key contracts, MOUs, and policy analysis online, along with the cost breakdown of travel. Mr. Pintard says nothing should be preventing the government from doing these things, as it is their electoral mandate to improve transparency in the Bahamas.
Where's the loan agreement for the $20 million that was loaned to the Ministry of Housing through a Jamaican company? When will Bahamians see those details? What is the secret? Why is the government breaking the law by refusing to publish its now well overdue fiscal strategy report for 2022? Where are the reports of the Fiscal Responsibility Council for the 2021 report and the budget for the fiscal year 2022-2023? Why is the government continuing to break the law with the illegal tax breaks for yachts for millionaires? This tax break for the rich never came to Parliament. And why is the government hiding the full cost of the subsidies that it paid to BPL when it neglected to execute the fuel hedge? We only know for now that Bahamian taxpayers are paying close to $100 million to Shell for BPL because of the government's ineptitude.
Mr. Pintar demands full accounting on how much taxpayers' dollars have been spent by the government in all of their previous and current projects. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.